Welcome, dear listeners, to the inaugural episode of the Flower Shop Girls podcast. I'm your host, Daisy, and I'm so thrilled you've joined me here in our charming little flower shop. Grab a warm cup of cider, cozy up, and let's dive into ways to bring those nostalgic, romantic autumn feels into your life. Let's talk about autumn decor. One of the best ways to capture autumn's old-fashioned charm is through cozy, nostalgic decor. Try filling your home with natural elements like dried leaves, acorns, pine cones, and wildflowers arranged in vintage jars, jugs, and baskets. Create an autumn wreath for the front door using fallen leaves, garden flowers, and wheat stems. Drape hand-knit blankets and quilts over plush armchairs in the living room to create a snuggly vibe. Set out candles that smell of cinnamon and clove, letting them flicker on side tables and windowsills. Display delicately carved heirloom pumpkins on the front porch, or spend an afternoon painting floral motifs on smaller gourds. Craft banners out of burlap, twine, and leaves welcoming autumn. Adorn the porch with whimsical metal silhouettes of woodland creatures. With so many nature-inspired, vintage decorating ideas, you can easily infuse cozy nostalgia into your home for autumn. What are some of your favorite ways to decorate for fall? Let us know. We'd love to hear your tips and tricks. Now that we've covered some ideas for infusing your home with cozy vintage autumn decor, let's talk about carrying that nostalgic feeling into the season's celebrations and gatherings. After you've filled your home with the sights and scents of fall, the next step is inviting loved ones over to share in the magic. Hosting autumnal get-togethers is one of my personal favorite ways to lean into everything warm, pastoral, and nostalgic about fall. When the leaves start changing and the air gets crisp, it just feels right to gather with friends and family over mugs of spiced cider, seasonal treats, and wholesome activities like wreath making. So let's dive into some ideas for the perfect vintage fall fete. Hosting cozy get-togethers is a lovely way to celebrate the fall season with loved ones. Send handwritten invitations on floral note cards for an afternoon autumn tea party. Serve freshly baked pumpkin bread sandwiches, spiced apple cake, and cinnamon tea. Style the tablescape with vintage linens, wildflowers in mason jars, and tea sandwiches cut into whimsical flower shapes. For a seasonal soiree, create fun wreath-making stations trimmed with vibrant fall foliage like maple leaves, juniper sprigs, and blooms from the garden. Provide supplies like grapevines, ribbon, and miniature gourds to make DIY wreaths to take home. Serve mulled wine kept warm in slow cookers along with baked brie topped with cranberries and rosemary. As the evening winds down, gather guests around a glowing bonfire in the garden and hand out roasting sticks and ingredients for s'mores. Make memories roasting apples and marshmallows beneath the stars. With some cozy touches and creativity, autumn gatherings with loved ones can feel nostalgic and magical. Now that we've covered festive ways to decorate and entertain for autumn inside the home, let's shift our focus to some dreamy activities to enjoy the nostalgic fall vibe outdoors. There's nothing quite like brisk fall days spent admiring the seasonal splendor and partaking in wholesome, old-fashioned fun. From apple picking adventures to trips to the pumpkin patch, many favorite fall pastimes evoke nostalgia. Bundling up in cozy sweaters and scarves to sip warm cider while perusing vintage shops and craft fairs is quintessential autumn. Or staying home to bake pies with the fall harvest and rewatching classic films provides equal coziness. Whether venturing out or staying in, lean into vintage autumn with these suggestions for activities that never fail to feel familiar in the best way. They capture autumn's sense of nostalgia beautifully. Let's explore some ideas to inspire magical autumn days filled with simple pleasures. After covering some fun ideas for fall decorating and gatherings, let's explore ways to enjoy the season's nostalgia through quintessential autumn activities. When the cooler weather sets in, plan simple outings and days filled with cozy pleasures. Pack up baskets with baked goods, blankets, and mugs of piping hot cider or coffee to take on an afternoon picnic. Spend time out in nature reading poetry, listening to the breeze rustle the changing leaves, and cloud gazing. Another classic is heading to a local apple orchard for cider donuts and picking ripe, fresh fruit. Bring your harvest home to fill the kitchen with the scent of baked honeyed apple pies or apple butter. On crisp fall weekends, bundle up to peruse vintage flea markets and antique shops, keeping an eye out for time-worn treasures like jewelry boxes, painted portraits, or silverware to display. Or take a nostalgic stroll browsing the boutiques and bookstores in a quaint small town. When home, pop in a classic autumnal film like You've Got Mail or Practical Magic. Spend the cozy evenings snuggled up with mugs of tea, candles glowing, and blankets to keep warm. In addition to activities, embrace the vintage autumn allure through your attire and accessories. Layer up in cozy turtlenecks, chunky knit sweaters, plaid flannels, flowing A-line skirts, and riding boots for the quintessential retro fall outfit. Top looks off with crocheted mittens, woolen hats, and oversized scarves in rich hues like crimson, mustard, and rust. Carry thrifted natural fiber baskets on your arm stuffed with foliage and baked goods from an afternoon at the farmer's market. Sling faded denim totes over your shoulder as you go apple picking or pumpkin shopping. Look for pieces with charming prints and motifs like delicate florals, earthy plaids, and romantic velvets when perusing second-hand and vintage clothing shops. Tailor pieces to you by having your local seamstress cinch waists, adjust hemlines, take in shoulders, or make other custom alterations to complement your frame. Incorporate glamorous vintage-inspired hair accessories like etched tortoiseshell combs, voluminous silk headscarves tied under the chin, or elegant rhinestone barrettes pinned just so. Don a turban to protect styled locks on blustery days. Fall's nostalgic beauty is reflected from head to toe when you take inspiration from retro decades. Keep coziness and a nod to the past at the heart of your autumnal wardrobe. As we've discussed cozy ways to decorate, gather, and dress for autumn, let's shift our focus to warming up from the inside out. With cooler weather approaching, there's nothing quite like nursing a steaming, nostalgic beverage on a crisp day. The aromas wafting from mugs of mulled cider, pumpkin spice lattes, and apple pie tea bring such hygge to the season. Fill your kitchen with the inviting scents of cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and maple as you concoct autumnal drink recipes handed down through generations. Brewing and savoring hot drinks is a comforting ritual. Adding whipped cream, cinnamon sprinkles, pie crust crumbs gives familiar flavors an indulgent twist. Enjoy leisurely with loved ones or solo by the window admiring the fall views. So let's discuss some ideas for nostalgic, soothing beverages to infuse your days with seasonal warmth. As the weather gets brisk, warming up with cozy autumnal drinks is a perfect way to infuse hygge into the season. Fill your kitchen with scents of cinnamon, nutmeg, and apples as you brew nostalgic beverages. Brew coffee or tea in gorgeous vintage teapots and take time to slowly savor each sip. Try unique flavor combinations like maple pecan coffee, orange clove tea, or even apple pie lattes. Top off your mug with homemade whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon for an extra comforting treat. One of my favorite cozy drinks is pumpkin spice latte. Whip up this quintessential fall drink right at home. Ingredients: 1 cup strong brewed coffee, 1/4 cup pumpkin puree, 1/4 cup milk of choice, 1 to 2 tablespoons pumpkin pie spice, 1 tablespoon maple syrup. Combine all ingredients in a blender. Blend until smooth and frothy. Pour into your favorite mug and top with whipped cream, ground cinnamon, and pie crust crumbles for an autumnal delight. Savor this deliciously scented and flavored latte while admiring the fall views out your window. Make it a self-care ritual this season. Let me know in the comments if you actually took time to make on your own. Now that we've covered warming autumnal beverages, let's move on to some nostalgic treats for the oven. As the weather cools down, spending an afternoon baking comforting goodies makes the kitchen feel extra cozy. The sweet scents of cinnamon, nutmeg, apples, and pumpkin permeate the air. Rummaging for grandmother's time-worn recipes for gingerbread, shortbread, apple pies, and bread pudding. Bake using organic, seasonal ingredients like heritage apples and butternut squash. For example, try this old-fashioned apple bread pudding. Ingredients: 6 cups bread cubes, 3 apples, cored and chopped, half a cup brown sugar, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/4 tsp nutmeg, 3 eggs, 2 cups milk, half a cup raisins, optional. Preheat oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Toss bread, apples, sugars, and spices together. Whisk eggs and milk separately, then pour over bread mixture. Add raisins if desired. Bake in a greased baking dish for 45 to 60 minutes until set. Serve warm or chilled. Package up your creations in vintage tins or floral embroidered linen as gifts for loved ones and neighbors. The touches of cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla will scent your kitchen and make it feel like home. We've covered so many mouth-watering ways to bake nostalgic autumnal treats. Now, let's take a quick vintage commercial break to keep us in that old-fashioned mindset. Check out this original 1951 radio advertisement for Betty Crocker Honey Spice Cake Mix. The golden cake with honey and warming spices like cinnamon sounds like the perfect retro fall dessert. You can just imagine families gathered around a radio listening to commercials like this one. So take a trip back in time as we enjoy this vintage cake mix ad. The classic radio style takes us right back to the nostalgic baking days of yesteryear.
Hello, I'm Betty Crocker. I guess every family has its own kind of problems, but certainly baking a cake doesn't have to be one of them. You don't have to be an expert when you use my cake mix. Take my newest flavor, Honey Spice. The men really go for it, and so will your bridge club. A perfect cake. You be the judge, or write General Mills, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and get your money back. Anybody can make a cake like that, even your youngsters. Just add water and 2 of your own fresh eggs. Those fresh eggs keep it moist and tender to the last crumb. Not that you'll ever have any crumbs left over. A Betty Crocker cake mix cake is high, light, better tasting. You know, even your very first cake will be perfect with my Betty Crocker cake mix. As a matter of fact, that's why I can safely say, I guarantee a perfect cake every time you bake, cake after cake after cake.
And that wraps up our cozy vintage How to Romanticize Autumn episode. We covered nostalgic ways to decorate, gather, bake, dress, and sip the season away. I hope these ideas spark inspiration to infuse your days with all things hygge and vintage. Remember to appreciate the little moments and simple pleasures this fall. Be sure to let me know which topics you enjoyed most by leaving a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share so more people can unplug and unwind in the autumn glow. Thanks so much for listening and joining me on this nostalgic adventure. I'll be back next week with more cozy and vintage living ideas. Until then, stay warm, treat yourself to something pumpkin flavored, and have a wonderful autumn. Bye for now. And don't forget, please like, subscribe, and leave a review to help support the show. Your encouragement means the world.